Hello, and welcome to the Red Feather Genealogy podcast. Like the last podcast, this is going to be going back to a previous video and then going quite a bit further with it because, as in the subject of the Cherokee, GEDmatch has now become a national headline. This was a few months ago, but it continues to be another gift that keeps on giving. GEDmatch is a very basic, despite appearances, website. It's entirely free. It's been around for a while. Very simply, all it does is it allows you to compare against people who have taken other tests than you have, or for that matter, tests that you have. For example, let's say you test through Ancestry, but you want to get some more information out of it, and you want to test against people who've done 23andMe. This allows you to do that kind of thing because you just take your DNA data from whichever site you tested with, and you upload it to GEDmatch, and hopefully many other people do that, and then you can compare across the board, and they cover just about every site you can imagine. So Ancestry, 23andMe, FTDNA, MyHeritage, so on and so on. It's pretty good all-in-one shopping. The problem is that very, very few people bother to actually send their information over there. In the video that I did, it was attempting to show how really straightforward the site is. It's one of those sites that I guess looks kind of clunky and possibly complicated, but it really isn't. And once you get there, then you can see on their chromosome browser, which Ancestry does not have, exactly where you match people by chromosome. You get deeper ancestries. You get a lot of really interesting information. And I keep pestering my good Ancestry matches to go over there so I can compare to them and others. Very, very few people actually do, so in turn I've been pestering Ancestry for years to get a chromosome browser, which would just about nullify the main use of GEDmatch, at least in terms of genealogy. So now we've got CC Moore. I think the first time I was aware of her was on Finding Your Roots, the PBS show with Henry Louis Gates. And by the way, he's awesome, and the show is awesome. It tackles genealogy from every angle. So these other shows are a little bit slower to, I guess, embrace the DNA of it, because frankly, doing a tree is all well and good, but you need the DNA to make sure your relatives are actually related to you. Unfortunately, the Maury Povich angle is here to stay. A lot of people having a lot of kids with just whoever and whatever. It's like a great fun game to a lot of people, to the point where you need DNA just to find out who your family is. But that show has it covered, and it's spectacular what they do. I love it. And CC Moore was on there helping with somebody. One of these times where I think the setup was somebody wasn't sure if their maybe great-grandpa was their ancestor or not. So what she did was what she subsequently became kind of famous for, which is triangulating her information against somebody else's. Essentially all this is you take your DNA in a close-ish match and you combine your tree with their tree to reach that third point, the triangulation, and figure out whether somebody is related or not. It's in the ballpark of something that I've been doing for years, because with my limited information I've been trying to really, really bleed a stone. But of course she's doing it on a much more advanced level that is fairly mind-blowing. So she got in the news because they started doing this to catch people. They caught that guy who had done some pretty nasty stuff decades ago doing this, and it's been kind of a steady stream of scumbags getting nabbed by this. All of which is pretty great, or so it would seem, because it turns out a lot of people have a problem with this. Their argument is, I don't want people to have my genetic information. Yeah, I understand that completely. Yeah, you don't want it getting to the government. We've seen how Facebook and other companies that are supposed to be protecting privacy hand information right over to the government. Like it's nothing. Not exactly putting up a fight. That angle I do understand. Here's the thing. Everybody already has your information. Maybe it's because I'm an Oregonian and we are aware of possibilities beyond what we would like to believe. But I've always just assumed that the FBI has a file on me. I assume that they do on everybody. When terrorist attacks happen, for example, maybe it would be good if they had this information. I'm not saying that they should go out and get it because I believe that they already have it. If you wonder how they catch people pretty quickly, it's because they already have your information. I might add that this is not a theory or some kind of cynicism. I suppose if you listen to this stuff for long enough, you'll get some idea of how many crap jobs I've done over the years. And, well, I guess they're coming in handy now, aren't they? Because they make wonderful examples. Years ago, I was doing phone surveys. And it was, this kind of jazz where you would call somebody up and ask somebody what they thought of their phone service or something, and it was extremely obvious who was paying for it, but you couldn't actually say who was paying for it. And a great many people did not want to answer these questions. They would say, "Are you working for so-and-so?" And we couldn't say anything. We had to stick to a very robotic script, and not many people actually sat through it. Some people joked their way through it, which was kind of entertaining. The point is that at the end of the call, we would always try to get their personal information. Surprisingly personal, like how many TVs are in your house and what's your annual income and the kind of things that you don't really want to tell a strange robotic person over the phone. And you'd be surprised with how many people would go along with this, but of course most people would say no. And especially after saying no to the rest of the call, we would actually have to skip right into this anyway. Oh, you didn't want to answer the annoying questions? Well, how about some super personal questions? Would that be great? Sometimes people would actually go along with it. What all of this is boiling down to, though, is we weren't really asking for their personal information because we already had it. We were just confirming how many TVs you have in your house and what your annual income is and how many kids you have. And yeah, it was creepy. It was really creepy. And I began to notice that the phone survey job was a bit less about serving the client and a bit more about just gathering information. You know when they say that they're not going to sell your information or pass it around? Yeah, that happens anyway. I mean, how are you going to know, and what are you going to do about it? Of course it happens. And even if the company is being quote-unquote honorable about it, well, companies go under, and then another company buys it. And oh, look at all this information I've got. So, yeah, the phone surveys are just information collecting. That's really about all they are. Another example comes to mind when I was doing phone sales, which seemed like a better alternative to door-to-door sales, which is the only reason why I ended up doing it. And you'd call people, and they would demand to know how you got their number or how you got their name, that kind of thing. And they were quite upset about this. They would say, well, I never gave it to anybody. I'd say, well, evidently you did, because I'm on the phone with you, and I know your name, and your address, and several other things about you. Well, nobody ever... sure they did. So, maybe when you go to the mall and you want to win that boat that they're advertising in the middle of the mall, and you put your info on a piece of paper, what do you suppose they're doing with that? Or maybe your teenager has put in your info, right? It's kind of like American Idol, where people would vote by phone or whatever. I was never part of that scene, but of course that's an information collecting process. Well, I never gave you my information. Well, Actually, you gave several people your information, and then they gave several more people your information, and now I'm sitting here having this idiotic conversation with you. So, yeah, the information is out there. In fact, if this isn't spooky enough for you, genealogy is very, very much like private investigation, as I've learned. It's what they call skip tracing. In other words, when somebody isn't paying something, they skip out child support or whatever. Collection agencies do exist where their job is to track you down. And I have done whole genealogies for people I don't even know, or people who don't know that I'm doing it, because they would get freaked out at the idea, so I just circumvent them and do it anyway. It's very easy to find people. And in defense of all of this, I might point out that most of the information found on people is given by themselves. If you remember the old days of MySpace, you'd call somebody and they don't want to pay their debt. So you ask them, well, where are you working these days? Usually they would answer in a most uncouth manner and slam down the phone. And then you look them up on MySpace and, oh look, there you are. Advertising where you work to the whole world, This happens on Facebook too. A lot of people don't make it private. Or they do think that it's private. And then they post photos of themselves at work. It's just, people can't shut up about themselves. So it's not really digging through somebody's trash. It's just paying attention to what they're doing. There is so much information out there. I guess this might be another morality tale in the end, because, look, if you upload your information to GEDmatch, you're not really giving much more info than is already out there, but you're probably going to help to catch somebody bad sooner or later. Look, if the government wants to pull up with the black van and get you, they're probably going to anyway, and there's much more of a trail leading to you than you believe. But you might as well just help contribute to it, because you might be catching rapists and murderers. In fact, there's a very good chance of it. If my DNA leads to, finding somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, hey, great. A lot of people are throwing fits about this and demanding that their information be taken down. Yeah, wink, wink, we'll take it down. I don't know if GEDmatch is doing something like that. I happened to see a interview with the guy who runs it. Seemed like a nice guy, but hey, who knows, right? Information sticks around forever. And, hey, just for fun, maybe put your info out there, and maybe they'll catch somebody really horrible with it. Who knows, right? So get some information, give some information, whatever. I honestly don't see it as a big deal. They're going to find you anyway, right? Well, that's about it for this time, so thank you for listening. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll be talking to you again soon.